if I'm not just looking at Reddit, I'll be on like the Rooster Teeth subreddit, and if like anything gets mentioned about like Tuesday Night Game Fight or like anything that I was a part of,
Justin
Lopez
here. Ask me
on
anything. AMA. Hashtag cool kids. Hashtag I was on a Rooster Teeth show.
Pretty much. It's one of those things where it's like I literally add to Reddit just to get attention to myself.
I can actually, hey, this is Twin Stick Radio, episode 75 for the week of June 27th, 2019. I'm one of your hosts, Trey Higgins, and I'm joined by Justin T. Lopez.
Hello.
Wait, did you just start it? What?
I did just start it.
What the?
And Everett, what's your middle name, Everett? Or the initial, I don't need the full name.
It's private.
What's the initial?
It's M, right?
It's just an initial. That's all
Everett M. Jordan.
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't it M?
No.
Dang it.
I know we've figured out your middle name before.
Yeah, well,
but
I've said it.
I just don't.
Actually.
Ronald.
But never on the podcast. No. I just can't remember it because it's not like Justin who advertises himself as Justin T. Lopez.
That's me.
So on Reddit, my most popular post ever is and honestly, I only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably like 20 posts that I've made. And I comment every now. I would say I comment more often than I post.
For some context, for those of you just now listening, we're talking about Reddit.
It's not my job to edit the show for Everett.
For Edit.
Your name is Edit now, Everett.
Edit.
So my most popular post that got me 1 gold.
Oh.
And let me go to the post because I actually can see
Brag about it.
And it has 1,200 upvotes.
Updoots.
Was after Colbert made that monologue about Trump being a cockholster for Putin.
Uh-huh.
I made a post that said, as a gay man, Colbert's monologue didn't offend me. To Trump supporters, stop pretending like you're defending me. We all know you don't really care. And literally the whole thing is just like the title of the thing is more serious than the actual like post that I made. But it was a response to like the Donald, which back at the time was when it was still on like the front page of Reddit all the time.
Right.
Going
It's not
around
quarantined.
and like, oh, Stephen Colbert is homophobic and he hates gay people because he made a joke about Donald Trump sucking a dick. And it's like, no. It's just Stephen Colbert is like a good friend who's worried about the person you're dating. And my second most popular post is me asking for advice about Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which has 420 upvotes.
Man. I got to start.
There's a lot of karma.
Yeah. I saw the funniest fucking comment the other day. I can't remember what it was. It was like in context. There's like a post that someone did about like a scene from their last session of D&D. And there was basically this guy's wife dies. Like the guy in the game, his wife in the game dies. And someone just made like the best joke ever, and without like going and finding the post, I can't really tell you. Like even if I were to like sit here and explain it over, it would just ruin the joke. But it was like one of those jokes. It's like one sentence, and you're just dying because it's not even that the joke is funny. It's that the person is so fucking clever for just responding that way. And I had to give it a Reddit gold. It was just
You
too
gave
good.
it a gold?
Oh yeah, I have so much gold because I had bought Alien Blue, which was the like first mobile app. I don't know if Reddit supported it or not, but it costs money. And whenever they shut Alien Blue down and released the Reddit app, they gave you like 3 years of fucking gold. And I've gotten just gold now and again for occasional comments. Like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a fucking Reddit savant. I'm not. 90% of what I post on Reddit does not get seen at all. But I get gold all the time. And so like I have gold until August 2020. And I love the ad-free experience of Reddit so much that when the gold runs out, I am going to buy a subscription on Reddit just because it is so fucking convenient and it's really cheap.
My mind is blown right now.
Wait, can you explain how gold works? Because I don't know
So-
anything about. Like I keep seeing that. I'm like, what
It used
is
to
this?
be-
like cookies.
It used to be that someone would give you gold and they would literally buy the gold. They'd be like, okay, I'm going to spend $1 on gold. I'm going to give this person Reddit gold because they said something that I really liked, supported, thought was funny. And then you get like a year of Reddit ad free for the gold. But the way it works now is that you pay for a subscription for ad free and you get a gold. And then you have like a monthly allowance of gold that you can use. And I think it still gives other people benefits when you give them gold, but I'm not really sure what those benefits are. But I have like 2.8 thousand gold.
Oh god.
Oh wow. Okay.
I just hand out all the time.
See, I guess I don't know. I still thought gold was kind of like the old way gold was. Like, it was rare. It was a big deal to get it. Now you have like a surplus of gold.
Oh,
See,
yeah,
this is why we got off the gold standard in America.
Let's
Surpluses of gold.
It gives the recipient a week of Reddit Premium, including 100 coins. They call them. They call them now, and shows a gold award on the post or a comment. So I guess you do give someone a week of ad-free Reddit still,
And they get 100 coins.
that's what gold is. Like the gold, depending on how much coins you spend, you can either give someone like Reddit Silver,
Yeah.
or gold, or Platinum.
So if you give someone a gold, they get 100 coins too.
Yeah.
And then they could just. So this just seems like one person could have bought it, and then if everyone coordinated, no one would ever have to buy gold ever
Yeah,
again.
but the problem with Reddit is that in order to do that, you have to make friends on Reddit, and that's just not something that people do on Reddit. Like, it is a solo experience where occasionally you talk to other people, but mostly laugh at other people. If you guys haven't listened to us before, we're a podcast about video games that we record every week, and Chris is not here because he is actually playing at a Pride show. Which is really weird to say that I'm here during a Pride show and Chris is not here. Like, you would think it would be the opposite way around.
I think anyone can go to a pride parade.
No. But like, you would think that if someone was not going to be here for a Pride show, it would be the gay guy.
It is a little ass backwards.
Yeah, not the guy that hates crowds and going in public and leaving the house.
He looks at his schedule and he just goes wherever it tells him to go.
But Everett, are you playing anything right now?
I did jump a little into Destiny just to revisit.
After my compelling speech last week, right?
Oh yes, totally.
You should check that out. Episode 74.
Yeah.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah.
It's a lot of Destiny, isn't it?
It's a shit ton of Destiny.
But there was like no news, so in our defense, we filled up an hour and a half. I don't know what else you want from us.
You made content. I'm happy.
All I really did was I did the Outbreak stuff, and that was pretty neat.
I still haven't gotten Outbreak. I still haven't gotten Whisper.
It's kind of like raid level strike stuff. So it's pretty fun.
I've tried getting Whisper, and have just decided that unless I find a really kind Sherpa, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what you need. Is you need either a dedicated group or somebody who knows what they're doing. So, but the cool thing about Outbreak is since we did the catalyst, or we at least started it, whereas like you go into this computer room. And then there's like you have to decipher the codes, and you essentially have to find out what code is working at any given time and enter it into a computer console in a room of 49 computer consoles. And by the end of it, you enter all 49 computer consoles, and then you complete the puzzle.
Wait.
Interesting.
I feel like I just had a stroke. Is this Destiny or is this a different game?
This is Destiny.
So there's a room with 49 computer consoles. You find the one that you enter it into. You enter the code into, then you have to find the next one, and then so you hit all 49.
Like you use like you have these two different wheels on these terminals. There's 3 terminals, and then you're each looking at these terminals, and then 2 out of the 3 will give the right code, and then you basically match the codes that are right. And once you get the right code, somebody goes and runs into a room, enters the console that like corresponds with that code.
Got it.
And so it's just like each time you do it, since there's only 20 minutes in the strike,
the event.
Yeah, you have to keep like adding them on, and they add 15 seconds to your time.
Got it.
So you have to keep adding them as quickly as
that sounds
possible.
like that would take forever, though.
Yeah, it does, and it feels so satisfying once you actually get it all done. Like you see the consoles popping up green. It's
the
like,
numbers.
What
do they mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I've been playing Destiny 2, and I think we mentioned this last week, so I won't go on for too long about this. But the Outbreak mission and Whisper mission are the 2 things that I just hate about Destiny. Is the sense that like they time you, and it doesn't matter how much progress you make. If you don't complete the event in the time that's allotted, you make 0 progress. And so you could literally waste hours doing this. And that's the shit that like bugs me about Destiny, and why I'm like, oh man, the menagerie is the best thing in the world. Because it doesn't matter how much time you spend. You're always making progress. I hope... I mean, there's always going to be like a Whisper Outbreak Prime quest, right? Like there has to be another one coming up before Shadowkeep comes out.
Maybe. We'll see.
But I really hope that that's something that they're looking at in the future. Is it's like, hey, let's not waste people's time.
I don't know. I kind of like it. It makes it like that was why I like doing raids in previous Destinies. Like it just felt more exclusive. It felt more challenging. So like the more challenging it is, the harder it is to get something. So it feels more worth for me to pursue.
So if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly.
Well, I don't mind so much that those things exist. I mind that so much of the game is about not making progress. Like it really, because like the Reckoning's like that. The Forges were like that, but the Forges are now ridiculously easy because you outlevel the content by like 100 power levels. The Ascendant Realms were like that.
Yeah.
Raids are like that. I could see here, and those are that's just me going easy on naming events. So many events are about hit your head against a brick wall for an allotted amount of time, don't make progress, and then have to start from the beginning. Nightfalls used to be like that. And so my only hope is that like, okay, cool. These things in the game exist and keep expanding on those things. Keep making raids, keep making Outbreak Prime quests, but like also have a good section of your content be towards like not losing progress if you're not good at the game.
Right.
You want to be rewarded for trying.
I want to be rewarded for playing the game. Yeah. Even if it takes me 100 more hours than it would take Dado to do something, because they have exotic quests that are like that too, where it's like get this amount of kills in Crucible, but if you die, you lose progress. So if you don't have like a positive KD on one match of Crucible, you lose all the progress that you made last round when you did have a positive KD.
Right.
Which isn't a big deal for me. I usually have at least like a 1.15, so I make like 1% progress. That is not bragging. I am not bragging. That is not impressive.
Look at this man with his Reddit gold and his positive KD.
That is 1.5 KD.
And usually with those, there's some leeway too. It's like a 1 to 3 ratio of deaths to kills. And you lose progress, something like that. So.
But some of them aren't. Like the fucking the Last Word one is just so hardcore about like counting your deaths and stuff. Which is also annoying because I still have the fucking Chaperone quest, which is like use a shotgun. Shotguns are a lot harder to use in Destiny right now. So you're like, I'm trying to get my shotgun kills, but also I'm trying to make pride. It's just a thing. If it takes me 100 hours to do something, but I still do put in a required amount of time, I should still be rewarded for it.
Right.
Participation medals for everyone.
It's not a participation medal. It's not like I'm asking like, oh, let me jump in the game and just give me an Outbreak Prime. It's like, let me do 100 tries, and maybe after 100 tries where I've wasted, so many hours doing this, as opposed to Dado and T-Rex who get it on the second try.
Yeah. You get something.
Yeah. Because it's just like there are things in the game I'm never going to do. Like I'm fairly confident I'm never going to get Whisper or Outbreak Prime. Which is fine. I don't deserve everything in the game.
Right.
But it's also, those are just two examples of a shit ton of things I'm never going to get in that game. Yeah. Anyway, that's all you did? Was Outbreak Prime?
Yeah. That's it.
Fun. Justin?
I didn't play a whole lot of anything, honestly. Like I said before the podcast, my power brick went out on my Xbox. So that sucked. Because so my Xbox is like my go-to, like I got 20 minutes to play something. Boot it up, play some Rocket League, play some Overwatch, get it out of the way. Boom. Without the Xbox, I just have my PlayStation. And my PlayStation is like my single player, like time to sit down and play for like 4 hours. And I just haven't had the time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sucks.
I played Destiny, obviously, and I played a little bit of Borderlands, a little bit more Borderlands. I still need to get through that game.
Borderlands 2?
Yeah.
I thought you already finished those.
No, I finished the pre-sequel.
Oh.
I still want to finish that game. I still want to get the platinum in it, which I played a little bit with Chris and Whitney, so I knocked out some of the things I needed for the platinum that I thought I would never do.
Do some of them require playing with other people, or is it just easier with other people?
There's one trophy where you have to do all level 1 non-specific like zone or character or non-specific like zone, I think, challenges. And the challenges are like things like get a certain amount of kills with an assault rifle, get a certain kind of kill with an assault rifle. And I've pretty much done all of them, but the things that I was waiting for were the multiplayer ones. So it's like trade, duel, pick someone up that's been knocked down. And then, so I knocked out all 3 of those. So literally the last challenge I have to do, which is the most annoying challenge, especially since I passed the part where you can sort of cheese it, is you have to get a rare loot midget spawn of like a loader bot called Jimmy Jenkins.
Oh, yeah.
And so basically, like, I'm at a point with that where I'm either just going to have to like spawn into Hyperion zones and just hit Hyperion chests and see if he pops out, or I'm gonna have to start from True Vault Hunter mode and go back to the quest where you can sort of cheese the spawn rate a little bit. But the main thing I want to do is I want to beat the game, because apparently the new DLC that they released during E3 is actually really, really good. Like it's getting really positive reviews like across the board, which, I was telling Chris, and Chris is like, well, of course it's Borderlands 2. Like what are you talking about? It could be bad, but it's a free DLC for a 10-year-old game. And so, like, when you say a free DLC for a 10-year-old game, I'm like, oh, this will be like an hour or two experience, and it'll probably be fine. And I'm not going to complain about having a free experience. But it sounds like they put more effort into that. Like, it sounds like it's more in line with the quality of the other DLCs of the game.
Yeah.
Which is not what I was expecting. So I'm excited to try it out and see what I think.
Yeah, but I feel like Borderlands especially is a perfect game for that, because it ages, relatively well, just because like you have like an art style and like the general play of Borderlands hasn't changed a whole lot. So being able to go back and throw in some DLC for a 10-year-old game works, I guess, for that.
The worst part about playing Borderlands 2 right now are just like little quality of life things.
Yeah.
Like, especially after playing Destiny, I had no idea how much of my Destiny strategy involves sliding and shooting. And, I anytime I play Destiny and then go to play Borderlands, I try to do that. And so it's like I'm running and I hit the thing and my character squats and fires. And I'm like, well, that didn't work out. So the newest feature I'm excited for in Borderlands 3 is sliding.
Man, I like that is a pet peeve of mine whenever I play two games simultaneously or like at the same time period, but they have totally different like controller layouts. I would have that all the time with like Halo and Call of Duty, because it's like I would go to like crouch, and then I think in Halo you like throw like a grenade with B, or you might like do like a melee with B. Yeah, it was like I would just be all over the place.
Yeah, and that's another annoying thing about fucking Borderlands, is that melee is still on the right analog stick.
Yeah.
And on Destiny, it's on the bumper, which honestly, for anyone who wants to add melee to their first-person shooter, there is no reason for you to not put it on one of the bumpers, because that's the perfect place for it. And I know that Borderlands is a 10-year-old game, and I'm not going to hold this against Gearbox. But it's just, it's fucking insanity to me that like I constantly am accidentally throwing grenades because I'm like, oh, that's where the melee button should be. Nope. You guys want to talk about the news?
Yeah.
We have 4 pages of news today.
Holy news.
Also, shout out to IGN, because I thought I had less time than I did. So pretty much all of these, except for like the first story, are copied from IGN.
Yay, plagiarism.
Yeah. Well, it's not really plagiarism if you give credit.
Boom.
I'm citing my sources, okay?
I have a funny story about that, actually.
Okay.
In 8th grade, my English teacher told me that. And she said, oh, yeah, just, as long as you give credit, you can plagiarize the heck out of anything. So we made a play, or it's either a play or a script. And I basically just, like, wrote word for word Red versus Blue, like, season 1. And then I just quoted it. It's all quoted. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's cool. It's fine.
That's awesome.
I got a B+.
She's not wrong. Like, literally, I wrote a research paper in this last semester for college. I did not do that. But like the way that the teacher wanted this research paper to be written, it was like 90% of what I was writing was quotes. Like there would be like, I would explain something and then have a quote that made the point, and then explain something and then had a quote that made the point. Like that was the way that he wanted it done. And it was the easiest. They were the easiest papers I've ever written, because it was like, really, none of this is an original idea. It's just me like explaining a concept that I've been reading about.
Yeah, I really like the idea of writing an essay, and it's literally you find someone who is basically has written an essay about the whole point that you're driving, and just like first sentence, so this person says this, quotes, very end, do like a separate paragraph. I agree with what they said. Thank you.
In conclusion, I think this person is right. Good night.
So what are your sources? Oh, no, it's just the one.
It's just that person.
He has sources in his paper, though. It's like using a Wikipedia page as a source. There's tons of sources in their sources.
Yeah. It's not my fault you didn't want to delve deeper.
All right. First up on our news, a group of game developers called the Grannies from Australia pushed past the boundaries of Red Dead Redemption Online and discovered a whole new world of open landscapes. According to images from the Granny's Twitter account, the areas outside the boundaries include vast empty wilderness, spots to swim, and small towns very similar to those seen in the HBO show Westworld.
Look at those grannies
like,
go.
I saw a screenshot. It literally looks like that. You've seen Westworld, right?
I have.
It's like that church that they keep going back to in the first season of Westworld. It looks just like that. It's kind of weird. Westworld DLC confirmed for Red Dead Redemption Online.
Ooh.
Oh my!
did they not see how Westworld ended? That didn't end well.
I mean, not that Red Dead Redemption ended very well either.
Okay, but Westworld doesn't end well for everyone.
Well, could you imagine like a new Red Dead expansion, but it's like Westworld themed?
Honestly, the fact that there is not a Westworld, because I feel like Westworld, where it's like Jurassic Park video games, right? Like aside from the fact that no one has really made a good one,
A sim.
well, there was a really good sim for Jurassic World that came out last year.
Yeah, Evolution.
But I'm talking about like an actual game set in a park where it's like a first or third person game where you're just trying to survive the park.
Yeah, that'd be
It's
awesome.
such an easy concept. It's like if you just hired a good enough developer, you can make a great fucking game. In Westworld, because it's Jurassic Park but with cowboys and robots, it's kind of the same thing. And make a great
It's
game.
1-to-1. Yeah. No, I would play it.
Yeah.
Have sex with robot cow people.
Well, if you want to have sex with robot cow people, CG Projekt Red has confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 will feature romance plot lines similar to those in Witcher 3. On Twitter, a fan explained, quote, "There were whole plot lines regarding character, and if that NPCs were treated," this is literally the quote, "were treated well and interested in Geralt, something was happening." In response, Pal Sasko said that Cyberpunk would be very similar, but explained, quote, "Of course, players will have more options than only heterosexual, as it was in Witcher 3, as Geralt was a defined character who was only interested in females," end quote. Sasko also hinted that New Game Plus may be available in Cyberpunk, though this hasn't been confirmed just yet. So, maybe you can fuck a robot cow girl in Cyberpunk 2077.
Isn't that the American dream?
That's the best segue I've ever had in my life.
That was very impressive. I just
nothing I ever do ever again will be as good as that.
And so, like, I wanted to acknowledge it, but I also didn't want to dilute it by acknowledging it.
Yeah, you didn't want to ruin the segue. It's fine. The segue's over. We've taken that little two-wheeled fucker down the street and switched to the scooter.
Yeah.
So we can finally acknowledge it.
Yeah, it was impressive. Bravo. You've made it as a podcaster.
I've done it after 4.5 years. I've finally made it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for Cyberpunk.
Me too.
I was thinking about this. The C3 really sucked. And it sucked for two reasons. Reason number one was
Keanu.
that was the highlight of E3. But it sucked for two reasons. Reason number one, it sucked because it was going to suck. There was no way it wasn't going to suck. Sony wasn't there. The new consoles haven't been revealed yet. Even though it's winking and saying Scarlet is not the same as announcing a console. And so a lot of people aren't going to talk about things that they're working on next gen because they can't show off hardware. But the second reason why E3 sucked is the same reason why it kind of sucked the year before, and that's because of all the leaks and pre-announcements, people trying to get ahead of E3. Mm-hmm. And really, I think this E3 would have been a whole lot different for me had the Cyberpunk release date not been leaked like 3 days before the Microsoft press conference. Because really, the fact that that game is coming out early 2020 and has a release date before Last of Us 2 is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Although I still think Last of Us 2 is coming out before it. So,
You think?
I think it's coming out in February. Jason Schreier, who I trust implicitly, had posted around the time of the Death Stranding thing that Last of Us was slated to come out in November. Then they released the release date for Death Stranding, which is in November. And apparently Sony was sort of scrambling to figure out where to put Last of Us. And it sounded like at the time they had sort of decided on February. So I believe Jason Schreier wholeheartedly and also would agree that would sort of be a good time to do it. Because you put Last of Us 2 out, maybe have Ghost of Tsushima in May or fall, but I would lean on May because I don't think you'd want to put that out before the PS5. But you get Last of Us 2 out, that's your really big announcement. Mm-hmm. You announce the PlayStation 5 in March or April, and then you sort of put in your thing like, oh, and if you haven't played Last of Us 2 yet, guess what? It's going to be on PlayStation 5 too, and you're going to sell that to people like me who specifically bought a PlayStation 3 for Last of Us.
Yeah, I can see that.
That'd
Be a good time
promptly
for sure.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. For people who are big into like the romance options of games, like that's really cool. For me, it's never been a big selling point, but I know we've had multiple conversations about like just having the option. We've talked about it in Mass Effect, we talked about it in Witcher. So it's cool, and it makes total sense that Cyberpunk 2077, where you can literally select your gender. They even talked about how there were going to be not even just two genders, right?
Yeah, I think you can be non-binary, maybe gender fluid, and then I think you can also be a trans character as well.
Yeah. So like, it's no surprise that your romance options would be basically unlimited.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be crazy if you could like transition in game? Like you start as one, like, oh, maybe I want to change, and then you change like midway through.
Honestly,
You say that's crazy.
That would
but
not be crazy for Cyberpunk.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but like that'd be interesting to see.
It would be.
Yeah,
And at least it wouldn't probably be as offensive as it was in like Saints Row, where you could do that.
Yeah, this would be
everything's
just like
offensive in that game.
yeah, for real. Yeah, you just go and get some mechanical parts put in, and then boom.
Yeah. Speaking of Sony has patented. Sony has a patent on a new technology that will help remove loading screens from games that use it. The patent, titled, quote, System and Method for Dynamically Loading Game Software for Smooth Gameplay, end quote, describes a technology that loads in data in advance in order to prevent load screens. The patent explains that the system can monitor the player's character and use this information to load in new areas in preparation as the player approaches them. Quote, a load boundary associated with the game's environment is identified, a position of character in the game environment is then monitored, instructions corresponding to another game's environment are loaded into a memory when the character crosses the load boundary such that the gameplay is not interrupted, end quote, the new patent describes. Which is sort of how they did it in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
if you guys have ever seen that crazy GIF where it shows like a circle around Aloy, and then when she's facing an area, it deloads areas that you're not looking at.
Yeah, it's
and then
basically a cone.
It's loading as you're getting towards the edge of the cone.
Which is it's really cool. I don't know, for me, because I was thinking about this, like, I don't know, I haven't played a game in a long time that I felt like loading times were a problem. There's times where, like, loading times in-game, I don't know, like, getting into games, like, GTA takes forever to start up. But once it started, you don't really have any loading times. Same thing with, like, Anthem. Anthem had really long loading times in between, like, whenever you're jumping in between things. But also, I feel like that's, like, server issues. I don't think that's, like...
No, it's not, because when we would play with Daniel, who had the game running on a solid state hard drive, he was loading in like minutes before us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I it's a data issue. I mean, like, you are obviously someone who does not play Destiny 2.
That's true.
On console, because load times in that game are fucking ridiculous. And not only were they bad at launch for that game, like they were a little bit intolerable at launch, but as the game has gotten bigger, load times have gotten worse. Like loading into the tower takes so long.
See, but I don't like with this. Okay, so just based on the description of the patent, I feel like this isn't a fix to that. Does that make sense? Like, this is looking at the destination that you're in, and then it's preventing load screens from coming up. But if you were to, like, it's like Skyrim. Like, in Skyrim, you can travel aside from going into buildings, you can travel anywhere on the map, and you shouldn't encounter any load times. Occasionally you will. But if you fast travel to a location, the game has no way to predict that you are going to do that, so then you do get a load screen. I feel like that's the same thing that would happen with Destiny. If you're going to the tower, the game doesn't know that you decided to go to the tower until you decide that.
Well, I don't know how fast traveling would work with this, but like in the case of Destiny, you run into this issue all the time where you're going along on your Sparrow or something, and you hit an area that's not loaded yet, and it freezes you in the air, and it's like loading. So the idea basically is, and again, I don't know how fast travel would affect this.
Yeah.
But the idea basically is that if you look at like this table right now, we're sitting at 2 folding tables, and so it basically has created 4 quadrants. You're only loading 1 quadrant at a time, and by the time that you get to the edge of a quadrant, you load in the quadrant that's closest to that section.
Yeah.
So in the case of like Destiny, right, when you're loading into a map, say you're going to the tower's not a really big space, but the reason why I think it's a hard space to load is because they've consistently added content to the tower. Like there's new vendors, there's new equipment, there's new events that are going on there, new quest lines you can pick up from there. And so in that case, rather than having to load the whole tower before you load in, you only need to load the square that you're a circle or a quadrant of where you're going to land.
Exactly. Yeah, you would come in, whatever you would immediately see in your vicinity, that would load first, and then the rest would.
And then it would be loading as you're going across. Which in the case of Destiny, like there's sometimes that's not going to work because you do fast travel a lot in Destiny. Like if you're on a planet, you're going to fast travel from public event to public event. But in the case of like the tower, that would help out a shit ton because the first thing you do at the tower is you run to the vendors that are closest to you. And so the game can be loading the other areas as it's like, oh, you're going to Shaxx to hear him scream at you and turn in your Crucible tokens. And now you're going to go to Zavala and watch him be a depressed blue man. Oh, and now you're going to go all the way to the other side of the tower to see the Drifter and turn in your Gambit coins, Yeah. But in the case, but that's exactly, but Destiny is a microcosm of that example, because now we're talking about Red Dead Online and GTA 5, right? It's 100% like GTA 5 load times would be so much better if they had this technology.
That's true. Yeah,
because you don't have to load all of Los Santos.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. How that would inadvertently affect these longer loading times just to get into the game, because it's like you said, it's not loading because that's how they get around load screens now is. We're going to give you a long load screen in the beginning, but once you're in game, you shouldn't have to worry about it. We'll hide it behind, graphics or unskippable logos and things like that. But yeah, I guess if they are just going to load what's directly around you or in front of you, and then the rest would follow suit as you get near there.
Yeah.
Then that would fix it.
Yeah. Cool. We're talking about Anthem and load times. Executives at EA have decided to give up their bonuses this year due to the company's lower than expected performance in the 2019 fiscal year. As detailed in the summary of EA's business on the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's website, CEO Andrew Wilson and his executive staff have elected to not receive the monetary bonuses they typically would be paid as part of EA's pay-for-performance compensation philosophy. The report notes that the fiscal year 2019 is down, which is a disappointing result for EA after strong performance between 2014 and 2018. Quote, while we are disappointed with our fiscal 2019 results, we understand the challenges we face, and we will continue to focus on how we can apply the strengths of our company to capitalize on our opportunities, end quote, the report states. Yeah, it kind of would seem really shitty for these people to take millions of dollars. Meanwhile, like the only games that are succeeding at EA right now are their sports games.
Right, exactly. And not only that, like I'm wondering, did they decide to give up their bonus, or is it more like, well, you didn't meet these standards? So, because like they talk about whole like the pay for, where did it go? The pay for performance compensation philosophy. Like, isn't that basically just like here's your bonus if you meet these like goals? And it's like, oh, you just didn't meet the goals.
Right. So your theory is that like
they basically just didn't qualify for the bonus.
They didn't choose to do anything.
Yeah.
Instead, they didn't get the opportunity to take their bonuses.
That's what it seems like. I feel like a pay for performance philosophy is like another word for like it's a performance bonus. If you did good, then you get this money.
Yeah.
If you didn't do good, then you don't get it.
And now it's just at this point, it's just like a PR safe face, like we're not taking the bonuses because we need to pay our employees.
I don't know how that works as a CEO though, right? Because as a CEO, if you want to take money, it's kind of the same thing that was going around last week about Randy Pitchford taking the money from like a 2K deal and siphoning it into his own company, which is like Randy Pitchford's company for video games, porn, and magic, which is only like a third of a joke. Like the porn part isn't there, but it's essentially like Randy Pitchford's company for something in magic.
Okay.
It's like I said, it's 2/3 of a joke or a third of a joke. But and part of the argument that I think Gearbox is making in favor of Randy Pitchford is like he owns this company.
Yeah.
If he wants to take $12 million from the company, it's his property.
Right.
So I wonder if the same thing like sort of applies when you're a CEO. Is it's like, could you still elect to take the money? Like, who's going to stop you? Your boss isn't going to stop you.
It's true.
Investors might, but we already know investors don't really care about the company itself. They care more about making sure that the rich people running the company stay rich, which is all over dramatic, but not wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. I wonder, is Gearbox, because they're not publicly traded, right? Like they don't.
I don't think they are. I think they're privately owned.
Yeah, so maybe that's a little different. I don't know if EA could I don't know if you could just decide like, I'm just gonna.
Well, you risk pissing off your investors.
Yeah, which could be bad.
Also, they even say it's their own policies, so it's just they're kind of like, oh, we're enacting this because this is what we want to say about our company.
And not to be like, oh, they're rich, they don't deserve money anyways. But it's like, I mean, like your salary is probably really good anyways. Do you really need like a, multi-million-dollar bonus? I don't know.
There gets to be a certain point in your life where you have so much money that like, do you really need more money? Like once
the answer is always yes, but I agree.
No, but the answer is not always yes, because like
if it was me, yes.
If you hit billionaire status, Justin, if I pulled out, if I had bags of money behind me, and that pile of money equated to $1 billion, and I told you, you can have $1 billion, but you can never make another cent in your life.
Oh yeah,
of course. You know why? Because you could live for 10 lifetimes and not make that much money.
Oh yeah.
Like most people will not make that much money. And not only is that enough money for your lifetime, that is enough money to where your kids, your kids' kids, your kids' could live lavish lifestyles and still have money left over.
Yep. That's crazy. That's what I want. That's my goal. I had a friend. This is a side tangent, but today I was talking. Me and Taylor were making a joke about just money, basically, like how it's great to have money, and it's great to have people pay for things. And then we didn't realize that our friend, she a little bit older than us, her parents paid for her to go to college, which is nice. And then we're like, oh, okay. And then I asked her, I was like, are you gonna pay for your kids to go to college? Because she has kids now. And she's like, oh no, that's already taken care of. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, my parents are going to pay for them to go to college too. I was like, that is so nice. Like that is how I want to be whenever I get older.
Yeah, no,
I want to just be able to my next 10 generations, it's all taken care of.
That's kind of how my dad and stepmom's like side of the family is where it's like, obviously I want to make my own path and not live off the success, but they have lived really good lives. They've made really smart decisions and they've done really well for themselves. That in theory, when my sister has kids, like my sister who's doing really well for herself too, you know, could probably pay for her kids' college with money from my parents and grandparents, and they could afford to do that. Yeah. Not to say that they would. This is not like my parents have just it's really funny when you look at like my dad specifically, because he's sort of like risen up. Like he is the definition of the American dream and sort of making money and being a success on his own terms. And of course, you know, Jen is too, but Jen had a little bit more advantages than dad. And so now they live like a really good lifestyle where they buy 5 acres of land and are expanding on it. And it's like, man, it'd be nice to have that future.
Yeah. And then there's you.
I just want to, and I might be the failure of the family.
Man. Did you just have that realization, or have you had that realization?
No. I think it's like one of the points in my depression log that's like near the top. It's like, what causes you depression? My family's more successful than me. EA CEO Andrew Wilson has admitted that Anthem's ambition to let players experience its story-focused gaming and looter shooter mechanics in a shared world is, quote, not working very well, end quote. But he vows that the publisher will stand by both the game and developer BioWare in hopes of improving Anthem's multiplayer features. Talking to GameDaily.biz, Wilson said of the 2-player demographics Anthem attempted to bring together, quote, one was traditional BioWare story-driven content, and the other was this action-adventure type content. About the 30 or 40 hour mark, they really had to come together and start working in the Elder game. At that point, everyone kind of went, oh, hang on a minute. Now the calculation is off, end quote. He went on to say, quote, the promise was we can play together, and that's not working very well. End quote. He admitted, explaining that some players were expecting 100 hours of story while others were hoping for advancement of game like Destiny. But then while Wilson recognizes that Anthem has had a poor start in life, he's not ready for EA to give up on it yet. Quote, I feel like this is a really weirdly written article.
Yeah.
I feel like that team is really going to get there with something special and something great because they've demonstrated that they can, end quote.
He didn't say anything.
That was basically, yeah. It was sort of like blabbering, like, well, we were trying to make a game for the bro shooter, but we're also trying to make a game for the hardcore RPGs, and it's like, oh, that didn't come together, and now the online functions aren't really working, so you can't even really play together. But man, we haven't given up on it yet.
Yeah, it was one of those where like you try to make a point and sound like you're in touch with everything by like pointing out the obvious. And then you just offer like no solutions or no like forward progress on like what's happening. So it's like, if you're not thinking about it, you could be like, yeah, they get it. You know, like they tried something and they failed. But then like once you really read over it like twice, then it's like, wait, yeah, that's obvious. It's obvious that they didn't hit any of the marks that they were setting.
Someone pointed out on the Anthem subreddit that the response to Anthem is like eerily similar to the way that they responded to Mass Effect Andromeda, where it was sort of like that first couple months there was pushes for game improvements, and then it slowly started to like talk about it slowed down, and then just sort of out of nowhere it's like, oh, you know, multiplayer stuff is still going to exist, but we're kind of done with this shithole.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while now because there was a while where Chris was still kind of like holding on to hope, and he was
Well,
like,
I think he probably still is holding on to hope.
I think he is,
This
but
conversation might be a lot different if Chris was sitting here.
he would never admit to holding on to hope for anything. But
You get too emotional, Trey. Why do you care about games that you like?
meanwhile, he's pointing out the fact that they at one point said that they wanted to support this game for like 5 years.
Meanwhile, if you say, I don't like this game you like, but it's great. I don't understand how you could think Fallout 76 is completely boring. Which it is, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, this, again, it's just, this didn't point out anything that none of us didn't already know. And the biggest thing, it offers zero solutions, and it kind of, again, showcases the problem of like, they still don't understand what their player base wants. Like, at no point in that did they say like, oh yeah, like our loot based system is like fucked up. Like,
we intend on fixing that.
Fix that, and like everything else you'll get some more leeway with that, you know?
Yeah. This week, Chinese online retailer Hansun started listing cases, screen protectors, and other accessories for a system called the Nintendo Switch Mini, presumably the long-rumored smaller Switch variant that has yet to be officially announced. It turns out that while these products may eventually be real and purchasable, the Switch Mini product shots shown on the Hansun site are almost certainly not. In fact, these listings seem to be based on Hansun's own speculation. According to an email Hansun sent to IGN, a representative of Hansun described the Switch Mini as, quote, a long-awaited machine, end quote. A representative, to IGN over email after we inquired about the products, but made it clear that the retailer, quote, can't represent Nintendo until this is really broken English, when their new machine will release to market. Hansun is also the same as the majority of players. We expect new and better consoles will be available soon, end quote. While the emails we were sent seemed to have translation errors in a few places that obfuscated the meaning somewhat, statements like this made it more clear that these listings are likely speculative and not some leak that should be taken as fact. That said, while Hansun explained that products like this are based on its R&D and design teams, quote, tracking the latest developments in the game industry, end quote, it also told us that Hansun has its own unique insights.
So the fun thing about this email, I don't know if you looked at it or if pictures or anything. It's literally, because I saw someone posted like a comparison. They literally took just a Nintendo Switch picture, like PNG file, and just kind of like shrunk it, and then found like a normal size like case of a Switch and just like expanded it. Like there is no design aspect to this whatsoever. It's just like, here's these things that were already made.
It's basically just stock images that they sized around.
Yeah, I was like, what? How? Yeah, I saw this, and my first thought was like, surely the way that this, because I do think that the Switch, I don't know if it's going to be Switch Mini, but definitely another model of the Switch is inevitable, you know? Mm-hmm. But I was like, whenever I saw this, I was like, surely this is not how it's going to get leaked from some kind of third-party Chinese manufacturing website that's making some sort of like
unique insights.
Yeah.
At this point, it's already been leaked. Like, we're just sort of waiting around. Like, both Forbes and Business Insider have talked to manufacturers in China that are actually making the systems, apparently. Again, I don't know if it's a Switch Mini, but I'm inclined to believe that it is, just because of all the rumors sort of supporting that.
Yeah. But they also wouldn't know, like, they would, if they are working on like cases and carrying cases and Joy-Con covers and things like that, they would need to know like specific sizes. Like, otherwise, what are they really making, you know?
Well, I mean, I think
specifically for Hansun.
Well, Hansun is a retailer. They're not making anything, so these are probably SKUs that they're getting from factories and stuff that might have more information. Yeah. Like, maybe the way that they've downsized. This is going extreme speculation with absolutely no support and believing that a Chinese company is doing an ethical thing. But it could be that they're sort of sizing down the image or sizing down the cases based off of specs that they've gotten for SKUs from actual cases and screen protectors and all that.
I could see that if these.
Don't think it's likely,
if this is to be believed.
All right, last up on our main news section. Earlier last week, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all petitioned the U.S. government to reconsider their stance on tariffs placed on goods imported from China to the U.S. The trio of video game and console developers issued a joint statement responding to the U.S. Trade Representative's request for public comments regarding the implementation of said tariffs, saying, quote, "We respectfully request that the administration removes HTSUS subheading 9504.50.00 covering video game consoles from the final list of tariffs and thus refrain from applying tariffs on these products. The tariff is being proposed by the Trump administration as part of the wider economic standoff between the United States and China and would include a 25% increase on video game consoles, controllers, arcade machines, and even board games." The trio of console manufacturers explained in their letter that, quote, "While we appreciate the administration's efforts to protect U.S. intellectual property and preserve U.S. high-tech leadership, the disproportionate harm caused by these tariffs to U.S. consumers and businesses will undermine, not advance, these goals," end quote. The companies claim that the increased tariffs would not only mean higher costs for their audiences, but that the increase could potentially affect not just the console manufacturers themselves, but the 65,000 odd game developers in the United States as well. Quote, "Reduced video game console sales unquestionably will lead to reduced sales of games, which is highly likely to have a, what is that word? Deleterious?
Yeah.
Effect on the small and medium-sized businesses that make these games and on the workers whom they employ," end quote.
Basically, you make consoles and everything more expensive, less games are sold, and it's just bad for everybody.
Well, I mean, you also have you have an industry that's about to release a set of brand new consoles in a year. Mm-hmm. And at this point, like, they are probably in the midst of being manufactured. I doubt a single console is actually done, but I would say probably core parts that they need are done. And, you know, because the U.S. doesn't have any strict rules on where you can make products that are sold in the U.S., they're all being made overseas. And this doesn't just affect video game consoles. This is going to affect cell phones, computers, laptops. It's going to affect almost any electronic device, because if you have something that has a CPU, GPU, fucking any sort of memory in it, chances are all of that's being developed overseas.
Right.
Which means that all of that is going to be way more expensive when you ship it to the United States. So you have industry that's releasing new consoles next year, and we might be in a place where these boxes hit $600 or $700 because that's how much it costs to import them into the United States. Or you have Sony and Microsoft selling them at already a huge markup, which, to be fair, something that a lot of people don't realize is that Sony and Microsoft don't make money off of console sales. They actually lose money on console sales. Mm-hmm. The point of selling you a box is not about selling you a box. It's about selling you software. You buy the box and they make the money off the software, which is why, like, you're never going to have a console that can play any sort of game. At least not in why we haven't yet. We might have streaming or something in the future. Mm-hmm. But, like, as an Xbox owner, you are specifically locked into the Xbox ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means that every game that you buy, regardless of whether or not it's published by Xbox, Xbox makes money off of that. Mm-hmm. And same goes for me as a Sony person. So it's just it's not good. It's not good for anyone.
Yeah, and that is exactly why you see so many. After the initial launch, you have so many kind of like relaunches too. You know, your upgraded consoles, your slightly smaller and slightly cheaper consoles. Because again, the more people that you can get into that ecosystem, once you're locked in, then that's, you know, more for sure money for them in the long run. And especially if some of these consoles are gonna have some of this technology that they've already talked about. You know, mm-hmm. solid state hard drives. That the technology that they've talked about or referenced in some like leaks and some like initial conversations about these next gen consoles, they could be already very expensive, mm-hmm. regardless of these tariffs. Yeah. So if these tariffs are going to increase that's going to make it an even harder sale mm-hmm. for everybody. Yep. You know, it's going to be some major what's it called? Sticker shock?
Price markup?
Ticket shock?
No, sticker shock.
Sticker
sounds
shock.
Right.
Yeah. Sticker, yeah, that thing. Price scare.
Mm-hmm. Well, and no one's gonna be like that. The thing about that money is like the none of the companies that we want to be making that money are actually going to be making that money. Like that 25% tariff does not benefit Sony or Microsoft, you're basically paying to get that in the country to be sold.
Yeah.
Like that's money that you're losing as a company.
Yeah, you're not getting like a better product. No one is getting anything better. It's literally, hey, it cost more money for me to get this here, so can you cover that extra charge too?
Yeah.
So,
But at least it's funding Space Force.
you have to be protected, Everett, from
my
all aspects.
This whole fucking podcast has just been Tangent City, but another tangent.
Space.
Exactly, space. Joe Rogan had a guest on his podcast last week named Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar is famous because from 1988 to 1989, he claims to have worked for the S4 site at Area 51. And after he got fired in 1989, he basically leaked that he had been working on UFOs, like a gravity system for UFOs, in a secret project where the United States had 9 UFOs that they were currently trying to figure out how they worked, right? At the time, he came out and said this, and everyone thought that he was crazy. But over time, different things that he said have proven to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Like two examples. Example number 1 is that he claimed that the UFOs were powered by a new element called element 115. He described the atom makeup of it, the size, the weight, and all this stuff. Right? This was like in 1990. In 1994, they found element 115. Like some fucking German chemist found element 115.
And it was the same.
It fit the description of element 115. And he also has described specific ways that the UFOs moved whenever they were doing test flights with them, because they could still fly some of them. And it turns out that a lot of the recent UFO sightings that have been seen by U.S. Navy pilots, by the way, not just random people, U.S. Navy pilots have had their eyes on these things that they're calling Tic Tacs. The way that they fly match the descriptions that Lazar had said that these flew. Mm-hmm. So he's on the podcast talking about this. I am 100% convinced, over a 2-hour interview, I was 100% convinced that there are 9 UFOs at Area 51.
Did you go, curiosity, did you go from not believing to believing in this 2 hours, or were you already like...
I mean, like, I've always believed that there's other life out there, and there's probably more intelligent life than us. But like, I was the kind of person that like really was just like, they're just testing weapons at Area 51. I didn't really believe that there was any alien shit at Area 51.
Didn't you live at Area 51? Wasn't that your base?
No. I was born in Alamogordo, New Mexico, near Holloman Air Force Base. So it's relatively close to Area 51, but Area 51 is where he was at, was technically closer to Las Vegas. Gotcha. But anyway,
so it's classified.
But I'm absolutely convinced that this guy is telling the truth, and Joe Rogan is convinced too. And Joe Rogan is more of a skeptic than I am.
Mm-hmm. I actually listened to part of that, and I actually feel less inclined to believe him. Like the way he was talking to. Like, well, as far as like the element part goes, like we already know there's so many more elements that are not on the periodic table, including 115. It's just the thing is we don't have the human means to make them. So we know they're possible, but we just can't make them without enormous amounts of power.
The question isn't whether or not we know about them. The question is whether or not you can actually make them. And that was the thing about element 115 is when he was describing this, it was like, there's absolutely no way that element exists. Like, yes, theoretically you could put neutrons and protons and electrons together in a way that would make this element, but there is no way in the universe that we know of that could manufacture that. Yeah. And so for him to be like, to describe something in such detail, to say like, I have messed with element 115, I know what it's like, I know that these properties of it, and then for it to be discovered within a decade of him saying that, like that's the crazy part. Because like the way that he had described it was more than just like, I know how the protons and neutrons are arranged here, because we know how protons and neutrons and electrons work. We can make, if you know how it works, you can make up any crazy fucking element, right? Like you're like, oh, I can make element 3400 and it has a billion different protons, and it's like theoretically that could work.
Might not be stable,
but whether or not it can actually exist in the universe is the question,
right?
I would recommend, if you're curious about it, to just listen to the whole interview, because I don't think Bob Lazar does a really good job of sort of like describing it.
He also has a pretty bad job of recalling information. in general.
Like what?
He's all like, I can't remember. Oh, I'm feeling sick.
No, he never said he couldn't
He
remember.
literally said that.
No, he didn't. He did say he was sick. He said that he was having trouble focusing.
Yeah. So many things have happened since then. It's hard to recall.
But they go on later in the thing, and it's like, this guy is literally like... Bob Lazar is kind of protected at this point because he's a public figure. Yeah. So if the government were to do anything about them, I sound like a fucking conspiracy theorist. If the government were to do anything about him, okay, it'd be very obvious that the government has done something about it. But the way that he says, well, because like if Bob Lazar just wound up dead, oh, obviously the fucking military killed him.
But it wouldn't be
so the way that the military has sort of gotten at him is they've ruined the people around him. Like the people around him, their jobs, their careers have been ruined. They've lost a shit ton of money. They've lost property.
Right.
They've been fired. They've been delisted from previous jobs that they've worked at. Like, so they go on later on the podcast after they've got because they get him kind of drunk and his migraine goes away and he's able to more clearly talk about the things. But they talk about at the end of the podcast where it's like, no, he just has really severe anxiety, which there's a documentary on Netflix that goes into this too. But he has really severe anxiety from this experience that he's really nervous about talking about it in public. Because outside of that documentary, he hasn't done a public appearance since like the early 2000s.
Oh wow.
And he specifically says, like in the podcast, he's like, look, I know my story. I'm not telling my story necessarily. And he says this in the documentary too. I'm not telling the story to make any more conspiracies or to make myself a hero. I've made no money off of this. In fact, I've lost money off of this. He's like, I am just saying my truth and I want no attention for it. And I'm doing this to protect myself because, had he not said anything, he was fully convinced that he was going to be killed by the government
because he like knew too much, basically. One of those things.
The idea was that there was a certain day of the week, Wednesday, where they would take the UFOs out for test flights, and the reason why they did that is because nearby highways had the least amount of traffic on those days.
So
less people would see it. So that means that UFO sightings, whatever. It's the 80s. Everyone has UFO sightings.
But apparently that was like actually well documented that people did see things on those days.
Yeah.
So,
but apparently, yes, exactly.
Fact checked.
There's that.
But apparently, he was having like problems at home with his family, and so he took his family and some friends out, and were like, "Hey, I know UFOs are going to be flown at this time of night. Let me show you what I've been working on," because he wasn't allowed to talk about it. So he takes them off this highway and he shows them, and they go out for a couple weeks. Like every Wednesday for a couple weeks, they're going out to watch the UFOs fly. Yeah. And one week he is standing there with a camera, like recording it. And he has provided recordings for the documentary that came out on Netflix. The documentary is pretty bad. I wouldn't recommend watching it, but it's there. If you want to watch it.
Recordings of
recordings of like these lights flying there. And mind you, it's a camera from the 80s, so it's not like you're getting like really high quality shots.
Of course, and no one had steady hands in the 80s.
Right.
Like it's all just.
But apparently they were out there one night, and he had brought some more friends and stuff. They had were in a camper and everything, and literally like soldiers from the S4 site came out of the woods, and they were like, "Hey, you guys need to get the fuck out of here." Got home, was called into the office. They told him that they had been monitoring. He knew they had been monitoring his phone lines, but they told him that they overheard his wife saying that she was having an affair. And then we're like, "You're fired, by the way." And he got so fucking anxious from this whole thing that he talked to a reporter in Nevada and got this story in the air, basically to protect himself.
That's crazy. I love this stuff.
I 100% believe him. I think he's compelling, and I think that the guy that he brought with him and Joe Rogan did a really good job of like sort of explaining things that he was having trouble explaining. And 100%, I would be just like him if I fucked up in that drastic way, got kicked off of a project that I really like is just fascinating, like putting gravity in a fucking UFO. Like you're working on a device that could potentially change the way that we travel in space. It's just a little gravity generator. And to have that like be stripped away from you because you made a stupid mistake, but also to feel like your life is in danger. I would do all the same things he did.
I love it. I love how much you're like on this guy's side, that you relate to him. I love it.
Yeah. I
do want people like that to be right. Just so all the people that think that he's crazy, I just want that ultimate justification of just like, I told you.
It's also just like that script idea. Like I can see like the scene of him like walking into the hangar and seeing like all 9 of these fucking UFOs lined up, and to know that someone experienced that in real life, but like also know the chances of you ever experiencing that yourself are probably 0 unless more people like him come out. It's like That's fucking insane to me. Like, can you just imagine tomorrow I'm like, all right, come check out this hangar, bring you to a hangar, and there's just 9 UFOs sitting there. Yeah. Like, because that is something that is life-changing. Like, that answers one of the core questions about living. Mm-hmm. You know, like, what happens when you die, and is there other life out there?
Right. Like, the answer to either one of those questions, mind-bending.
It changes your experience on Earth. You're not the same person after the answer to that question.
Guaranteed, yes.
It's fucking crazy. Back to video games.
The conspiracy hour.
Yeah, I lied. There are 2 more stories on here, but we are in our main news, but we are kind of running out of time. Glenn Schofield, the former vice president and general manager of Sledgehammer Games and Visceral Games, who was instrumental in creating Dead Space and co-directed multiple Call of Duty games, has been named the head of Striking Distance Studio by PUBG Corporation and will be creating, quote, an original narrative experience with the PUBG universe, end quote. All right, Mr. PUBG.
I have not played PUBG in a long time, first of all. Second of all,
a narrative component?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, I don't know. That just seems cool, I guess. Sure, why not?
We're going to skip this story, actually. It's basically Titan was canceled because it was too big of a game and they were too interested in making Overwatch, and the engine never came together is basically the point of the last story there.
That's kind of cool knowing that now, though.
Yeah,
I thought Titan was what became Overwatch, right?
I'm pretty sure the technology from Titan went into Overwatch.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds like from the way that they described it was that Overwatch was being developed alongside Titan, and Titan just wasn't coming together, and Overwatch was in a very obvious way.
Yeah.
Played the game. It's like there was no way Overwatch was not going to be successful.
Right.
Rumor mill. The reports over the course of the year. Over the course of last year indicated Microsoft was working on 2 next-generation consoles. A new interview and rumors suggest the company has decided to make its next console, codenamed Project Scarlet, a single device. In an interview with Business Insider, Xbox head Phil Spencer responded to a question about him referring to the next generation of Xbox as multiple consoles during E3 2018, saying, quote, "Last year we said consoles, and we've shipped a console, and now we've detailed another console. I think that's plural," end quote.
Oh, wow.
The console Microsoft released within the last year is the Xbox One S All Digital Edition, which is really just a slightly less expensive Xbox One S without a disk drive. Technically, that's plural, Spencer said, joking after this was brought up. Quote, "Right now we're focused on Project Scarlet and what we've put on stage," end quote. Further reports suggest Microsoft perhaps once intended Project Scarlet to be 2 consoles, but later shifted to a single device after potential complications arose with the developer and overall strategy, which I believe that. That makes 100% sense, because I don't understand how you can come out and have the Xbox One X, which is already sort of, cutting edge console technology.
You said 1X?
1X.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't see how you could have that exist and then be like, we are going to sell 2 consoles in our next generation. But how do you price a console that theoretically is less powerful than the Scarlet Extreme, but more powerful than the Xbox One X, when that console has been $500 on the market for 2 years?
Yeah.
Like, you're literally like telling everyone who bought your Xbox One X, fuck you,
you're an idiot.
How much money you spend isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Which means that in theory, you have to sell a box that is less powerful than the Xbox One X. Well, then what is the point of this box?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, even people who bought the Xbox One X, even initially before they bought it, like there was a lot of like questions of like, is this really even worth it? Yeah, so I could totally see that.
Yeah.
But also, could I also see Phil Spencer talking about saying like, oh yeah, I was talking about the all digital Xbox One S. I could also see him doing that. Like, I wouldn't be that surprised. He strikes me as that kind of guy.
I 100% think he's lying and just trying to get around the fact that they've changed their strategy.
Google produced Stadia, and then Microsoft flinched. Oh, no, we can't.
Oh, no. But, in Phil Spencer's defense, I say lying. It is lying.
Yeah.
He would be a liar in that case. However, there are degrees of lying that are less bad than another. And with Phil Spencer, there's a good chance that in the future he would talk about how this was the original plan.
Right.
So like I don't think he's a bad person if he's lying about this. I just think that like why would you come out and say we were going to do 2 consoles but we decided on one. Thanks, fam.
Yeah.
And chances are they probably still haven't figured out their exact strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially since there was no like concrete like this is this console, this is this console.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a not even necessarily a lie. It's just like I told you something whenever the plan was this thing, and then it changed.
Yeah.
You know, it like at the time it was the truth. And then maybe now I guess yes, what he said now could be a lie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, let's go into quick saves. Stop me if you're interested. Cory Balrog, game director of God of War 2018, revealed that Kratos was almost cut from the game. Talking at Game Lab in Barcelona, Eurogamer reports that Balrog said, quote, early in discussion, people were saying that we had to get rid of Kratos. It was like, he's annoying, he's done, end quote. However, Balrog was able to convince the team that Kratos was a worthy protagonist for the ambitious game. Sad story for the week. Popular gaming YouTuber Desmond Amofa, aka Etika. I knew that.
Oh, sorry.
I was no. I was not. That was not attitude. It was more like I know it's Etika, but when I see it written out, I want to say Atika. Etika has died at the age of 29. The New York Police Department confirmed on June 25th that Amofa has been found dead. The NYPD reported him missing on June 20th, with his last known appearance having been on June 19th. That's fucking crazy. He did a basically a suicide note as a video.
Yeah.
And I stumbled on that last night, and that's some dark shit. Like watching like the last appearance of someone, and you know that like the next thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna kill themselves. Like that's some scary shit.
Yeah, for sure. Like this was something that I was kind of following because he I never really watched any of his own like personal videos, but I do know that he did a couple like partnerships with like Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth. So I was aware of his presence. And he's had some meltdowns in the past. Like he's kind of had like definitely some signs of this, but no one. People always gave him just a hard time about it. Like people always claimed it was publicity stunts and things to get attention. And I don't know. Like in some ways, like aren't calls for help like calls for attention, you know, like I don't know, just no one ever took it serious, and so it was really sad to see kind of how this one ended for sure, especially because I did see the video. Like I watched the video before before
he was found.
Yeah, before he was found, and so it was kind of a thing of like, no, like surely they'll find him. Like he might have just kind of dropped off the grid for a little bit, He's doing his own thing. He's taking some time. Maybe it's just another one of those like false scare things. So it was crazy to see that he was found, and I was reading reports that he was wearing the same clothes that he was wearing in that video. So basically to say that really that video that he recorded was basically some of his last moments.
Yeah.
Like just kind of immediately after that. So
it's
crazy.
To your point, like about cries for attention and all that, like I think it's really hard being a viewer or something, because I think that like as people that, especially since 90% of us are not professionals, like we don't really stand on any ground to armchair diagnose someone with something. And he said in his video too, he's like I didn't go get help. He's like I knew it was an issue and I thought I could handle it and I couldn't, and this is where I'm at. But so it's hard to like blame the people that were giving him shit, but the people that blame is a really weird word to throw around here, but I think the people that you can blame in a situation like this are the people around him that didn't encourage him to get help. And he talked about pushing people away and all that, but it's like there's just a fine line between like when someone's acting weird, and like when basic signs as someone's friend that maybe something bad is happening. And I think that while he might not have been the best friend for pushing people away, you're kind of a shit friend for accepting it.
It's one of those things though too, where it's like, especially as you get older, adults, you can't force someone to get help. And so it's hard to make someone get help if they don't want to help themselves. And so I think maybe that's what happened in this situation. So yeah. I don't know if I could necessarily put blame on really anyone. It's a blameless situation. It's shitty all around.
No, I just feel different. This is not like there's an argument or anything. It's just I when someone has a mental illness, like you can't expect. Then I'm not lecturing you or arguing with you. This has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Someone has a mental illness, like you can't expect that person to have the mental faculties to take care of themselves.
Right.
And so I think that like as a friend or family member of this person, you have a responsibility to that person to like make them get the help that they need. You know, if it means writing into Dr. Phil and being like, "Hey, Trey's going crazy. Like, let's make Dr. Phil talk to him." I don't know. I just think that there's a certain amount of responsibility, and I can't imagine that this person was surrounded by people that were pushing for that to the point where it got this bad. You know, that's just my opinion. It's not right or wrong, but you know, like I would just hope as someone that has struggles with depression, like I joked about earlier, it's a joke, it's kind of funny, but as someone that struggles with it, I would hope that if it ever got this bad for me, that the people around me would like step up before it got to the point where I'm making an I'm sorry podcast and posting it in our feed, you know?
Right, of course. And that was kind of the most maybe chilling or sobering thing about his last video that he posted was it was very like, it was clear that he had come to terms with this already. Like he occasionally got somewhat emotional, but for the most part, he's very clear about like there are experiences that after he dies, he will never get to see. Shows that he likes, video games, things, and the way that he was talking about these things, it was as if he was already gone. And so it was just hearing those things, just like, man, like it got to a point where he just felt like there was no getting out of it. And it's crazy to see someone in that.
Well, and he just also says some really dark things in there too. Like he says over and over again, like, this is all my fault. And another thing that he says, I think he only says it like once or twice, but you really only need to say it once. Like, the world will be better when I'm gone. Like to hear, I think that those are. I don't mention the depression. I'm not going to keep mentioning the depression thing for the attention of it. Like the point isn't for someone to come on Twitter and tell me how sorry they are for me, because I think that there's a certain level of like, everyone should be comfortable talking about this stuff, and we shouldn't be afraid that like we're going to make people around us feel sympathetic.
Right.
So I'm not saying for this attention. I'm saying this as a fact, and I feel like if other people talked about it the way that I'm about to, it might be real. But these are all things that you say to yourself, and you hear them in your head, and to hear someone else say them, not only is it crazy because you're like, well, I don't really think it's all your fault. I think it's partially your fault, but I think it's also the part of the people around you for not supporting you and noticing that something was weird. And it's like, and honestly, like if you look at the Reddit and Twitter and Facebook response to, you know, the announcement of your suicide, like I don't think anyone else believes that the world is going to be better without you. But to hear someone like say that out loud, it's like, I just was imagining if he was one of my friends and someone posted that, I would have known right away that person was going to kill themselves. And I don't know what you do in that situation. Like maybe you can't find that person. I don't know where he lives. It looked like he lived in a city or something.
It was in New York. Yeah.
New York. Yeah. I obviously knew that because it's NYPD. But that's just some dark shit to think about, where it's like to a certain degree, it's like you're seeing thoughts that you've had visualized on screen, noticing that they're a little bit ridiculous, but also knowing that like, maybe you had some insight that people around him didn't have.
Right. You know where that person's coming from. It's like what they're saying is like you don't agree with. It's like you are crazy to think that the world would be a better place without you. Like that will never be the case unless like you're literally Hitler, you know? So it is crazy to hear those things. But then like kind of like you said, like you understand where he's coming from. You've heard those same things just said to yourself. And
you just know, like you said after that video came out, oh, they're going to find him. They're going to find him. If I had seen that video before he had been announced dead, I would have been like, oh, he's dead.
Well, it was one of those things where it was like, expect, or what is it? Expect the worst, hope for the best sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was like, with the tone of it, I was like, yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to, I think it's already done. But it was still one of those things where it's like, you're always just kind of hoping, you know?
Yeah.
Until you get that final, like, this is it. Like, you're always hoping.
Hindsight's 20/20,
Sure.
but I 100% would have been like, oh, there's no way. There wouldn't have been a hope for the best. It just would have been like, this is, unless because they would have found him right away if it was going to stop him. It's just sad.
Crazy stuff. Get help if you need help. Reach out to friends. People care about you.
Yeah, I don't really. I think after that conversation, I don't necessarily know that I care about any of the rest of this.
That's fine.
I feel like in the grand scheme of like life,
yeah,
that conversation is more important than what's going on in Crash Team Racing or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
But, to end this podcast on a positive note, if you're out there and you're having issues, suicide hotline, I'll probably put it in the show notes if you really need it. I doubt it. We have a small listener crew and, that I'm sure everyone's okay. But you always got to say that shit. And life is a good place.
Yeah. You never know who's going to stumble upon this, who might need it.
And also, if you're thinking about doing something bad, just remember that any day now, other people can start coming out about UFOs. And then maybe you'll actually get to see a UFO in real life.
Exactly. Think of the 9 UFOs
that are out there, just sitting in New Mexico.
All right. Getting all sandy and dusty.
Nevada, that no one knows about.
Yeah. Well, some people know about it.
Another thing was that
we know about it.
Another thing that's kind of crazy about the Bob Lazar interview is that they were asking him specific questions about other things. And his explanation, which made 100%, he's like, I only knew what I was working on because they didn't want anyone to have the full picture of what was going on with these fucking ships.
Yeah, you compartmentalize.
Well, you get someone smart enough and they're building their own UFO and selling it to China, and then China's bombing us with UFOs.
Yeah.
Bombing us with UFOs.
Well, you say that like it's ridiculous.
Gravity bombs, man. One day you're sitting there and the next day you're poof in space.
Also fell down a hole last night of people debating with flat earthers.
Oh, that's a good hole.
And the craziest thing is they're talking about flight paths for planes and how that proves that the earth is flat because of all the different layovers. But meanwhile, they're like, look at this round trip flight from, us to fucking Australia or whatever. And the guy literally says in the video, I think that's fake. It's so fucking stupid. How do you disprove yourself in one fucking video? You just admit the thing that you said doesn't exists, but have refused to acknowledge its existence.
Yeah, or it's like the memes where it's it's flat earthers talking, and it's there's flat earthers around the globe. And it's what you realize you just literally just disproved your flat earth theory in your statement.
All right, guys. If you like what we do, check out the description below for links to all of our social media and everything else. I have been your host, Trey Higgins, and Justin T. Lopez has been one of your co-hosts, and your other co-host was Everett Jordan. Check us out. If you're going to RTX next week, we will be there doing interviews and stuff.
Come say hi.
Come say hi, but more importantly, keep an eye out on your feeds. Assuming that interview doesn't get canceled at the last minute, we are going to be doing an interview with Greg Miller on Saturday. So expect to see that Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, whenever I get around to posting it when I'm not tired from RTX.
Yeah.
But that's
who knows what craziness we'll get into.
That's always my favorite event of the year is talking to Greg Miller.
This will be my first time.
It will be your first time.
Yeah.
I'm really bummed because they're doing a Kind of Funny comedy show. And having people from Kind of Funny and Rooster Teeth come on stage and tell jokes and stuff on Saturday.
Say funny stuff.
I really wanted to go, but I didn't buy tickets because I didn't think I was going to RTX, and now the tickets are sold out, and I'm really frustrated about that.
Some are being sold on Reddit, I think.
Yeah, for probably $1,000.
No, people just I can't go anymore.
Oh, maybe I'll look around on Reddit.
Yeah,
if
definitely,
you see any links to that, send them to me because I really want to go.
Yeah.
I really want to see Nick Scarpino do stand up because he's an inspiration.
There's a good documentary on that.
There is. It's fantastic. What's it called?
Waiting for the Punchline?
Waiting for the Punchline. Check it out on
roosterteeth.com.
It used to be on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there.
I know it's for sure on roosterteeth.com.
Yeah.
Become a first member.
All right, mister. I've been on fucking game night.
Check out my Reddit.
Yeah, while you're here.
Follow me on Reddit and go to my Ask Me Anything and ask me anything. So far, I've gotten 3 questions, which is...
and they're all from me.
A record compared to my last one, where only my mom asked me a question.
I got one schmold. It's like gold, except smelly.
See you next week, guys.